The Sunday of Mother's Day is always a little bit tricky because you never really know exactly what you're going to get. Sometimes everybody shows up to church because people are going to church with their mothers and then they're going to go home and go do Mother's Day things. Sometimes people will just stay at home and say, well, mom needs a day off. And for those people, I apologize that church is such an inconvenience for you.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
But it's also interesting looking and seeing who actually thinks Mother's Day is, like a quote-unquote legitimate holiday. I mean, it's not necessarily a quote-unquote federal holiday, even though we recognize it as a nation. A lot of people actually dismiss it as being little more than another Hallmark holiday. And what's funny about that is how Mother's Day actually started, because it actually began as the result of a woman in West Virginia who lost her mother in, I believe it was 1905. And then she began petitioning the United States government to recognize a day honoring mothers. Well, she was unsuccessful in getting Congress to pass anything. They actually jokingly said, well, if we have a Mother's Day, we're going to have a mother-in-law's day and so on and so forth. But, this woman was not dissuaded, and she actually convinced every single state in the nation to adopt a day that they recognized as Mother's Day, which is the day that we recognize today. And eventually Woodrow Wilson would actually sign a proclamation making it a recognized holiday, even though it was not an official federal holiday. So why do I go into all this history? It's not just an interesting tidbit of information, but it's to point out the fact that there was an actual meaning behind the holiday. And in fact, the woman who created the Mother's Day recognition actually would go on to hate the commercialization of things and the fact that it would become quote-unquote a Hallmark holiday. But there was an actual meaning behind it, and you could see it was based on this connection that she had developed with her own mother. You can only imagine the type of individual this mother must have been to make that kind of impression on her child. Well, when we look at the Bible, we can see numerous examples of mothers who left big impressions on their children and mothers who took their roles very seriously. I mean, you can look at Mary, the mother of Jesus, and see that clearly she had a tremendous impact on Jesus' ministry, being there from the moment she was born, obviously, but then also being there at the moment that he was crucified. Well, there are other examples we have of mothers in the Bible, and you're going to read about one of them, but what is very interesting about this particular individual is that she doesn't come from a familiar place. She's not another Jew. She's not another person from the area. She's actually a pagan individual that seeks out these Jews, this Messiah, and is willing to do anything in order to look after her child. And as I look at this story, I can't help but think of all the amazing women in my life that have been a part of my upbringing and even today are still a part of helping to encourage me and mentor me and kind of keep me accountable and keep me honest. All of these motherly figures. And maybe in your own small group, as you read this story, you will also think of some of the individuals, both family and non-family, that have played that mother role in your own life. It's these feelings of selflessness and humility that you're able to use to kind of personify what it means to be a mother. I mean, mothers are so much more than just two words, but if you had to boil it down into two words, these aren't bad ones to go with. Now, where this becomes very interesting is when you start looking at the family metaphors that take place within the Bible. We are all familiar with looking at God as being a father figure, right? And Jesus being described as a groom. Well, we also end up seeing in some of the different prophecies in Revelation and whatnot, allegories of the church being the bride that is awaiting the coming of Christ the second time. So you have kind of the groom and you have the bride, and the groom is Christ, who is also God the Father, just in another form. So you have a father and then you have a bride, which would kind of naturally make that church the mother, right? Well, I think this is really interesting because ask yourself, what role has a church played? Does it look selfless and does it look humble? I think many churches absolutely do not look like this. They certainly don't look selfless. The entire creation and planting of the Well Community Church in some ways was kind of based on some frustrations with kind of, existing traditional church models, and how a lot of times it would kind of foster this sense of self-preservation. It wasn't selfless. If anything, it was a, look after myself first, and then with whatever I have left over, I'm going to help out other people. Well, imagine a mother that would do that for their kids. That certainly wouldn't be anything that any of us from an outside perspective would look at and say that person is being a good mother. And we don't even have to talk about pride. I mean, obviously churches that get all big about the fact that I'm blah 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 church, and that's great, and I want to be part of team blah church. It's kind of neat maybe if you're inside of that family to have a little bit of esprit de corps, but what about people who aren't in that church family? After a while, it starts sowing seeds of resentment. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, does the church actually look like a mother figure? And if not, then why? What is it that we can do to act as a church that is more caring or nurturing to individuals that we are called to minister to, both those individuals who are a part of our family and also the people that surround us every single day? What could I possibly say about mothers that other individuals have not already said, and much, much better? A mother is something that is truly special, whether that's an individual that is our biological mother that we've always lived with, whether it's somebody that's more adoptive, maybe a grandparent, or maybe it's somebody we're not blood related to at all that just took on that mantle of being a motherly figure. I thank God that we have these individuals in our lives, and to every single one of you who puts on that mantle of either being a physical mother or being a emotional or spiritual mother to another individual, today we say thank you. And I hope that you're able to enjoy the day. And I hope that all of us are able to stop and think about the biblical applications of this day and to ask ourselves if we are being, quote unquote, a church that is a good mother to a world around us that sometimes just needs a mom. That's our lesson that we have for you today. I hope you have an outstanding Mother's Day. I hope you're able to get something out of this. Till we can meet again, God bless.